Hello, my name is Sean Ennis from Ennis Management, and thank you for joining me here once again on The Creative Collective. And today I'm honored to be joined by a very special musical guest. He's a singer-songwriter from San Antonio, Texas, Jeremy Parsons.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
Absolutely, thank you for joining me. So talk to me about the music scene in San Antonio, Texas.
Well, the music scene in San Antonio, I live in Nashville now. I've been back and forth for 10 years. The scene when I first left was actually, I would say it's headed back in the direction that it was when I started coming up here 10 years ago. But it was perfect at the time for when I was first starting to really get into being an artist and writing and playing out live and everything. It felt like the perfect spot to be. The only better place I feel like I could have been was Austin, Texas. But I mean, like, even Austin it's probably like an hour 15 minutes away from San Antonio. So I always felt like I was in a really good spot. I think if you come up anywhere in Texas, I mean, you're surrounded by, I mean, it's a big state. It's going to be full of people who want to do similar things in different spots, but there's so many places to play down there. In San Antonio, maybe not as specifically, but I mean, like, you could travel the whole state for a month and just play shows, which is really cool. But I mean, the San Antonio scene for me was very inspirational and a really cool place to cut my teeth. And I still go back. I went back in March, and I'll be back in July, and then again in September.
And what led to your move to Nashville?
My move, it was just kind of like flipping a coin. I'd say heads or tails. Like, heads, I moved to Nashville. Tails, to stay here, try to make it in Texas, and it just landed on heads. I was in college, and school was never really for me. I got nothing against it. Just personally, we never really got along. But I wasn't really happy and not really sure what I was going to follow through with my 4 to however many years it was going to be. As far as what I wanted to get a degree in, it just never. The only thing I really ever was connected to was music. So with the help of my dad, he kind of pretty much approached me and said, he was like, hey, you want to give this Nashville thing a try? And so we did, and I mean, I think I gave myself like 6 to 8 months. It was less than a year I was like, oh, if nothing happens, I'll just go right back home. It's like, at least we could say we tried. And within the first 3 months, stuff started happening. So that was nice, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, that's incredibly interesting. So walk me through those first 3 months when you first arrived in Nashville.
So it would be March 5th. I landed in town, found a place, and that night I went to a thing called CRS, which is a country radio seminar. And I was just immediately, that was my first night living here experience, was taking in this thing where all the radio DJs smooze with the artists pretty much. It's just like a big networking event where everybody just gets overly intoxicated. And I was kind of hooked at that point. That was just a lot of fun, even just like the people watching. I didn't really know anybody. I think at that time I knew one person, and she knew a lot of people, so it was a domino effect, just introducing and staying in a loop and everything. But that event really set me off, and then I just went out every night after that, and just put your name out there, get to know people. If you're personable, like, people will attach themselves to you in a very specific way. But it's I just went out nonstop and ended up meeting some people who knew some people, and just networking to the max. I guess I was so new to town that everything was fun and fresh too. So like I had this good energy that I was bringing in, and Mom was delighted to meet new people and stuff. So it was easy, I guess, to network and do all the things that you were supposed to. But I ended up being at a house party out in Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is just outside of town, which is where like the artists will live, and a lot of their session players and traveling bands will live in the surrounding areas, because they've been in the city so long they've grown tired of it. And someone heard a song that I was playing, and they told someone else about it, and one thing led to another, and it ended up getting cut by a bluegrass band called the Graskels. They cut one of my songs called Out Comes the Sun, and that led to some other things happening, and then I was able to end up making my own first record, which at the time was called Doggone This Feeling. Put that out, and that did really well. And that was pretty much the first 3 months. The thing that happened in the first 3 months was the bluegrass cut with the Graskels. And like that was almost like, once you have one thing to talk about, people can almost like stretch it out to 100, it feels like.
Absolutely. And networking is so important in terms of making connections and growing inside the music industry.
Oh yeah, it's everything. It's like, it's important. I mean, you gotta that's one thing you always gotta remind yourself. If you have another job, or like you're doing this full time or whatever, like if you're tired and stuff, sometimes it makes a difference just to get out there, even if it's for like an hour or two.
Now, what kind of music is your favorite to listen to?
I prefer to listen to I like older stuff in general, like across all genres. But if I'm gonna listen to like new stuff that's coming out, it's usually going to be like something probably indie, if not just purely defined as Americana. I like a lot of the singer-songwriter stuff. Usually when the artist is an artist and has more power as far as like the writing and production of the music, you really get to know that person as an artist. So I lean toward the music where I feel like that was what they were in charge when they were creating, because it helps me get to know the artist and the person who is that artist a little better. And I feel like the indie group has it better. They have more control, because there's not as many people telling them what to do and everything. So I try to stay, usually around that. There's bigger acts that I like. Well, like, good music is good music in my opinion. It doesn't matter what genre it is. But I'm really into like singer-songwriter, Americana, or just the old stuff too. I love that as well.
Man, that's a really interesting point. So, do you feel like, as a musician, when an act starts working with a major label, and the major label's interests are, of course, having a product that's marketable and has a high probability of selling, that affects what kind of music that act is able to produce?
I really do, because I think outside of that, it's never been a numbers game. You recorded a song because it meant something to you, and it came from your heart, and you're like, man, I'm really connected with this piece. I mean, when a label gets involved, it becomes about numbers and like, hey, record this song because this is what people are recording. was like, that's not what an artist does. An artist, records something that is a piece of them. It's like, it's like a piece. It's like a pie putting out a piece from another pie. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's your serving. That's a piece of you. But labels. I mean, I have friends who have label deals, and it's just I've not seen anything that has ever convinced me that it would be the best idea. Now, there are situations where, like, if you've reached a point of success, like, you can merge your label or what you are, like, an entity that is an artist with a label, and I've seen that work where they still have their control because the label was just going after what everyone else was going after, and they kind of let the artist do their thing. But I would say, like, 90% of the time we're looking at the other side of the equation where, you've kind of lost control, and you were an artist, but you've kind of just turned into like a statue, and they just randomly like dress you up in different outfits and, put words in your mouth. And yeah, I would say it sullies it for a lot of people, which is disheartening because it didn't used to be that way. But when everyone's trying to beat everyone else, I mean, it's not supposed to be a competition where we all compete for number ones. It's supposed to be, self-expression in art.
Now, what kind of music is your favorite to perform?
I would say my music. I love. There's nothing like playing your own stuff. I mean, but outside of that, I would say I really gravitate towards. I grew up listening to Hank Sr. and all those the older guys. I love playing some Hank Williams Sr. music. But I mean, it's always going to be the original stuff because it's like showing pictures of your kids to people. You just can't wait to do it.
Now, can you think of one of your earliest memories involving music?
Oh man, the earliest one I can remember is probably being, I had to have been like 4 or 5 or 6, somewhere within that 3 years of range. I was at we always used to, growing up in San Antonio, like one of the guys you always went and saw, when he was there is George Strait. I mean, he's hometown hero pretty much. He lived like right outside of San Antonio, right there on the outskirts. It was pretty much a suburb of the city. But so every time he would play there, we would go see him. I think of course everyone remembers it differently, but I remember standing up. I think I started sitting down, and then I moved to the floor, and then I ended up standing in my chair as a child because I couldn't see because I was shorter. But just singing. So he would do these George Strait Country Music Festival in San Antonio every year at a place called the Alamo Dome. It would later move when they moved buildings, but he would have this all-day deal where it was pretty much like 10 to 12 of the biggest country acts at a time, and he would just bring them through his hometown, and it would be like Tim McGraw and Faith Hill and Kenny Chesney, and Dana Carter was there one year, Terry Clark, like Toby, like all of these guys that are now like, super huge mega stars, and it was like right as they were starting out. He would come through every year, and we would try to go see him every time we could. And I think one of my earliest memories is standing in the chair, just like that day. It was probably a 10-hour day, and we would get there when it started. But I can remember standing up like the entire time, just singing to every song that everyone ever sang, and that was. And I would say I'm not in a big group of people that. A lot of my friends up here in Nashville specifically, they started playing music when they were like 4 or 5 or at some like really early age. And I actually didn't start. I didn't think about it as a career until I was like 17, like pushing 18. I just like picked up a guitar and I'm like, oh man, I've always enjoyed this. I should see if there's anything here, and next thing I know, it's almost an addiction. But yeah, that's probably the first thing that long before I realized that I was going to do this. That was probably what was happening. Part of my enjoyment came from the fact that it was already like a deeply embedded passion. That's one of my earliest music memories, as far as my connection with it, and why I think it's the life path that I chose.
Now, take me through how you got your start in music, and also what made you want to take it serious and pursue a music career.
I think, the start came, I was in high school, and a lot of my, as people do in high school and in college, a lot of my friends had taken a path that I wasn't really sure I wanted to go down. So I had that choice, as we all do at that age, and I chose to not do that, and I found a guitar at my house, and I was kind of in need of a hobby, because it was either find something that was going to be a good thing for me, or I would probably end up getting bored and going to, meet up with my friends or something. But I found a guitar, and I guess it kind of saved me, because you never know where you'd be if you'd have gone that other way. But I just got really into it. Like I said, it almost became an addiction, where I would just play guitar like hours and hours a day after school. Homework aside, of course, because who needs it when you got a guitar? But I just got really into it, and then I think 6 to 8 months had passed, and I was listening to somebody who was a Texas artist. They had just put out a record, and I was like, I'd like to try to write a song. I was telling my dad, and I had some kind of report coming up in school, and I was having trouble coming up with a way to write the paper, and Dad was like, "Oh, you should try to write a song about it." And I was like, "Heck yeah, man, it's a good idea." I think at the time I was like, "That's a dumb idea." I was an angsty teenager, but I ended up trying it, and that was probably like the first thing I was like, "Oh wait, no, I can do this." And that was when I was 17, and maybe I'd already turned 18 by the time I started writing that. But from then on out, I kept writing songs, and it turned in where I was writing like 20 songs a week, and maybe like one of them was okay, but within the 20 songs, I would learn something new about, a rhyme scheme, or like, how to play guitar and sing differently, or there was always this growth, and that's never stopped. Actually, I'm really lucky to say that every time I write a song, I pick up something new on the guitar, or like writing or singing. It's always been growth, which is really nice to be able to say. But yeah, I got really hooked on it, and probably within a year of that, I started going to writers' nights. They were open mics, and some of them, if they liked you, they would book you back, and you would be a part of their songwriter series, and that, I just kept going to a few, and then I kept getting booked back everywhere I went. And so, like, even my parents, their ears kind of perked up. They're like, "Oh man, this is actually, like, this is getting a good response." Not that, people ever doubt you. You just never know until you try. It is what it is. But, yeah, and by the time I was 19 and turning 20, I guess, I had made my like a good amount of rounds in Texas when I could, because I was as soon as I graduated, I went on to college, and just to try it out. So when I wasn't in school, I tried to be doing music. So when in my 1920s, I was 1920s. In my my 19 and 20 years, I was I was just traveling around as much as I could and cutting my teeth and playing as many places as I could. Whether it was like, you know, across the state or like right outside of San Antonio, just kind of said yes to everything because, you know, it was about the experience, and, you know, the more you do, the better it is, and it's just exciting. Like when you find something like that could be a thing and ends up being a thing. But when I was 21, it takes us back to the story earlier where I was sitting there and I was in school and I kind of didn't know what I was going to do next, and Nashville popped up and I said yes, and now I've been here 10 years. I played in Norway, played all over Texas, I played all over the United States. Been to Brooklyn, recorded vinyl. I've gotten to do a lot of stuff that I don't know. It's always kind of like, it's very nostalgic looking back. I mean, and there's still more to do too. Is what's kind of a nice thought. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster too. Like, you're always writing. You're always trying to book new shows and, you know, play new songs for people and connect with them and keep it all out there. But there's so many people doing what you do. But yeah, I mean, the journey's been awesome, and it's you know, like I said, there's still more to do too.
What genre of music do you consider your work to be?
I consider my work to be Americana. I've heard some people refer to it as alt country as well, like alternative country, which is fine. Some people just call it country too, which is cool. But my only issue with that is that to be grouped in with what they label country as today is kind of it's not necessarily my cup of tea. Like, a lot of people like it, but I honestly don't really ever even listen to it or consider listening to it. So it's not always the biggest compliment when I'm called country outside of who I am as a person. But yeah, Americana is what I like to be labeled, but alt country works for me too.
Now, how would you describe your music?
I would say that it's very realistic in the sense that I don't like to. I'm not going to stray away from the facts of life to make a song happier for you. I enjoy when people are able to discuss like real heavy topics, whether in music or outside of music. It means that they trust you as a person, and it means that they're comfortable with you and willing to share. And music is something I've been really comfortable with, and it's a very vulnerable thing. I mean, like, I write because it's kind of therapy for me. When I have an issue or something that I can't ever really seem to work through in my mind, just sitting there like, all right, I'm going to confront this as a thought. You know, it's always been difficult for me for some reason, but if I have a guitar and a notepad, if for some reason I'm able to write it out in a way that I don't even understand, that it comes out so much easier. I'm able to just make myself feel better by getting to the root with music. It's always been that thing that kind of made everything make sense to me. Yeah, sorry, I got off track there for a sec. What was your question again? I'm sorry, man.
I asked you to describe your music.
Yeah, so it's basically just like it's very, and sometimes there'll be like a lighthearted twist on the heavy, because I enjoy humor, but it's basically just a day in the life of, I guess is how you would describe my music, because it's going to be like my album, Things I Need to Say. A lot of the songs on there are about my parents' divorce, which, like, people get divorced. It's a thing that happens in a lot of people's lives. Whether you're, the person going through the divorce, or the children or cousin of someone going through a divorce. And I've had a lot of people reach out and be like, man, that really sums it up. That is how it feels. Like the first single off the record, Burn This House Down, that was about my mom leaving my dad and coming back to a place and not really being able to reconcile with all the things that have changed, like specifically the absence of one very matriarchal individual. A thing that made something home is no longer there, so is it still home? I mean, that's the never-ending question. And so the person in that song deals with it by metaphorically, I have to burn this house down because there's nothing I can do with these memories. I should just start over from the ashes. So it's stuff like that, and the response to that has always been really nice to me. Like, people have reached out or come up to me at shows and been like, man, I was going through divorce when this song came out, and I heard it somewhere on the radio in Texas, and I just I really connected with it. It helped me a lot. Stuff like that. It means everything, and I like writing stuff like that for people. It's almost like someone reaching out from a very long distance, going like, hey man, I'm dealing with this too, or like, I know people that are dealing with this too. Like, I don't want you to ever feel like you're alone, because no one ever is, unless you want to be. But it's I like the real stuff, and I like connecting with people on the reality of, like, we're in this together type thing.
What are some of the joys and also challenges of songwriting?
The joys are like finishing it. One of the biggest joys is being in the studio, recording a song that you've written, and you've kind of because right after you write a song, you've got this buzz, like you're on this caffeine high of oh man, I just finished, and everyone just wants to record that song right then. Like, there's no wait time. You're like, oh man, I can't wait for people to hear this. Like, let's drop it on iTunes tomorrow as a voice memo. But one of the biggest joys is going in the studio and being able to bring that song to life. That's always just it's like the cat's pajamas, for lack of a better term. It's what you wait for, like when you finished it, and it's amazing. What the struggle though is, it's usually internal and self-inflicted. I would say is that say you write a good song and then you don't write anything for 2 weeks. Like, your brain turns into your worst enemy at that point. It's like, hey man, we haven't written anything in 2 weeks. It almost turns into this oh my god, I'm never gonna write another song ever again type deal. It's like the human condition. Everyone's just freaking out about something that isn't real. You're almost creating a problem for yourself. But yeah, that's the only downside that I can think of songwriting is that you can't be writing all the time, because you'll just burn out on it. You'll wear yourself thin. Yeah, I mean, you spread yourself too thin, and then you got a bunch of songs that A, either sound the same, or B, aren't that good because you're just writing too much.
Now, what's the experience like of writing really personal songs?
I think that's honestly about 2 years ago I realized that's kind of the lane that I stay in now when I write. I'm looking for that personal experience. But I think it's at this point it's a natural flow that I've got down, because it just comes out as if I was like talking to someone who had asked me for advice, and my response to them would be picking up my guitar and writing them out, you know, my viewpoint on what they say. I think with me it's almost become that is the process now, is to write a hyper personal song, because that's been the thing that I've connected with so much. And like you kind of, and you know, you go where you're inspired to go, and that's just where I've been lately, it feels like. But it's almost like, you know, with people like wind down at the end of the day with, like, you know, some kind of like really nice bath or something like that. That's almost what it feels like. It's just like you're taking something out of you that like doesn't need to be there anymore, and you almost just feel lighter and better. It's this very like therapeutic process is the way I like to say it. Like there's no other definition of it. You just feel like it's the full release of something that's almost like been built up. You're just venting all of that out. It's like a necessary pollution or something.
Now, talk to me about your previous album, and then we'll talk about your newer project.
So my previous album was called Doggone This Feeling, which was the title track off that record, and we did one music video for it, and it was for that title track, and the concept was, the hook is, I got the doggone this feeling that my baby wants this doggone. It was just this like bluesy, kind of like goofy, groovy, Hank Williams Sr.-esque type song. It was really fun, and that record actually both records have surprised me on how well they've been received. And, that one was really special in the sense that little Jimmy Dickens, the late great, was nice enough to be a part of the video, and he helped me promote the record, and actually was a big part of me getting the Grascals cut, because they played that song for him, and he said, you know, if you don't cut that, you guys are idiots. Kind of said in jest, of course, but they listened and still cut it, which was nice. But and that song that they cut is also on the Doggone This Feeling record too. That was a really fun. I learned a lot in that era, and that, you know, I got to go to Norway on that record. They love traditional country, which is what that record was at the time. When I started writing, that was my lane that I stayed in. It was just because I was so deeply embedded in roots music, and just really fell in love with Hank Sr. and all of those the old timey guys, and it was just really taken in by it. But that record was done in that mindset of like, man, I've been listening to 40s and 50s country and have been really moved by it as a 21, 22-year-old kid. So at the time, I was kind of the only one of my age doing that sound. I've noticed lately, I guess in the past 2 or so years, a lot of people have kind of done that. I think I was like 8 or 10 years too early, it seems. But yeah, that record was very traditional. It did very well for me, and I learned so much from making it, and just, you know, like going out and doing shows all over the place with it. And I'm super grateful for it. I was actually, someone was making me listen to it the other day, which is always really weird, but it was kind of fun, because it's like, you know, no one really likes listening to themselves, but, you know, if you go back, it's kind of like, as I was going through the songs, I could remember like the process of writing being in the studio, and just how differently I thought at the time. And it was really, really kind of, I'm glad they made me do that. It was an experience, and I appreciate it. But yeah, people still enjoy that record. It's interesting to like get messages on something that that record would be 10 years old this coming January. So January 2020, that record would be 10 years old. It's weird to see to think that people still connect with specific songs off that record, even though it's been that long. But I mean, I guess there's people that do that. I mean, I still do that with so many records too. But that record was really good to me, and I'm glad I got to make it. And this newer one is currently my favorite thing that I've ever made. It was a definitive move in a slightly different direction. And it was kind of scary at first because I feel like people wanted me to stay a traditionalist, but I wanted to go where the songs were kind of taking me. And so I did, because that's what, like, you know, as an artist, like, you know, you want to be good to your fans, but at the same time, self-care is very important in the sense that, like, you know, if they're truly it's like friends, you know, it's like if they're truly my friends, you know, they'll be happy that I'm happy type deal. And like doing this music, which not a lot has changed. There's like, I went for some different sounds on this record, which I really liked, because I don't, like I said, I like all kinds of music. A good song is a good song, and a prime example for me would be Tom Petty. Like, if you listen to a Tom Petty record, you know, he's a rock and roll guy, but there might be like this really melodic, beautiful acoustic track on there somewhere. So it wasn't defined by a genre, it was defined by the song. And it was just a record full of these definitive songs and with a message. So I was like, I was really moved by that. And then when my parents started going through a divorce, and I had lost my manager passed away, and then a lot of stuff happened in my life that, you know, required changes and dealing with. And I didn't necessarily deal with them in the best way, but the thing that came out of all that was these songs, and a new way of writing, and like a kind of a more powerful vocal presence. I was pushing myself in a way that I hadn't, because I wanted to get away from you know, what was happening, and I was using music, as I always had, as an outlet, and it saved me yet again, in the sense that I don't know if I would have been able to work through the things that I did had I not had music, because it really just helped me sit down and deal with problems, because I had a new well to draw water from as far as writing goes. And I did, and it was such a great experience, and making that record was perfect, and the musicians that were on it. And I found my producer that I think I'm going in the studio next month to start a new project, which will be nice, because Things I Need to Say has been out for 2 years at this, little over 2 years at this point. So I'm ready to do a new project, but that was the first time I worked with my producer that I'm going to work with again, and will continue to work with as long as I can. His name is Michael Flanders. He's out of Australia. Really awesome guy, really good slide player. He really understands where I'm coming from as far as an artist, and he always brings it to life in this very perfect manner. But yeah, I mean, both of those albums have like hold very special places in my heart. But Things I Need to Say was really like this big transitional point for me in my life, in my career in sound, and I'm really stoked to make this next project too.
What are your music career goals?
Just to do it till I die, man. I think a lot of people have this weird, framed thought of fame in their mind, and it's it seems cool, but like I really would just like to be able to play music, pay my bills, pay rent, feed the cats, put gas in the truck, and all the necessary human things while doing music. And I've been able to do that so far for 10 years, and I just want to keep doing that. Like my goal is to keep making music, keep going out on the road, keep meeting new people, and then keep making some more new music. It's just all a repeat phase for me, I think, at this point. Just keep doing what I'm doing, and I don't think I have any insane goals other than that. Which is, I mean, it's the industry is pretty insane, and I was like, yeah, I always tell people, I was like, anyway, he's like, if a buddy goes, man, we must be crazy, and I was like, dude, anyone would be crazy to try to do this for a job. Like, I mean, we're all just running around, like, during the day while other people at work, writing with each other. Like, some of us, a few of them will go out drink. They'll start drinking at noon. It's just like write a song. Go out that night, play a show. Like, it's a weird lifestyle. Like, but it's for a very specific type of person too, though. So if it works for you, it works for you. And I want to keep enjoying life like you're supposed to, and keep making music, because that's one thing I enjoy the most out of life.
What advice do you have for an aspiring musician or a musician who's just getting started in their music career?
I would say keep at it, and we talked about networking earlier. That's probably one of the most important things in the sense. But I mean, like, I would play as many shows as you possibly could, whether they're paying or not, because it's like sometimes you get more of the shows that don't pay. I mean, there's a point where we all have to decide if it's working or not, and if it's not working, then don't do it anymore. I know that's like the heartbreaking thing to say, but like all you could do in this industry, if you're not actually, if you don't think there's any longevity for you as an artist, is like everyone, if you come up to Nashville, there's 30 people that can't wait to take your money. So it's like one of those things, like, make sure that this is the thing you want to do, because it's not a picnic. Like, nothing in life is easy, but this is you have to be mentally prepared for this job, because I mean, we're talking about an industry it's fueled by art, so there's crazy people are everywhere. I mean that respectfully, of course, but it's just like, I'm one of them, so it's make sure that this is the thing that you want to do, because if it is, it'll be easy, but if it's not, you just end up wasting time and money. But just get out there, cut your teeth, say yes to everything as far as shows go, and don't sign any label contracts. I think that's the best advice I could give you at this point.
Can you share your social media links?
I can, yeah. My Facebook page is just Jeremy Parsons Music. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's JM Pickinfool. That's Jeremy, J as in Jeremy, M as in Montgomery, which is my middle name, and Pickinfool, which is Pickkinfool. So that's JM Pickinfool without the G in pickin'. And Twitter is JM Parsons Music. And there's also links to all that stuff on my website at jeremyparsonsmusic.com, as well as a full store with a bunch of trinkets and show dates and a bunch of other goofy videos and music videos and everything that you could possibly want to find and more at JeremyParsonsMusic.com.
Is there anyone you'd like to acknowledge for offering financial or emotional support to you in your music career?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a fool to not acknowledge Michael Stover. He worked so hard for me and many other artists out there. So big shout out to him. He does more work than most people I know. So all the respect and love in his direction. But also another shout out to my dad. He's been my rock since day one. He was in a lot of these stories we talked about. He was the guy that was always in the foreground, you know, giving me this prime advice that would turn into like the stuff that really like kind of made me take this career path. It almost like he knew what he was doing. So and all the love and respect to him for not only just being a good dad, but also just being you know, really supportive in a lot of times when a lot of people weren't. Life is hard, but if you got good people around you, it makes it easier.
Is there anything else you'd like to promote or share?
I got a new music video coming out pretty soon, and that'll be, you know, at all the social media links in my website that I just gave you. It's called Making Things Up As I Go. It'll be the last single off Things I Need to Say. Did the video with my good buddy PJ Schenkel of 3 Hat Media. He also did my Burn This House Down video, my Is The Bluebird Blue music video. This will be our third and final one for this record, so we're both excited and kind of bummed about that, because it's always interesting when something comes to a close like this. But you know, I'll still play the songs out and everything, but keep an eye out for Making Things Up As I Go music video and single release, I would say, coming within the next month or so.
Alright, I would like to give a very big thank you to my guest today for joining me here at the Creative Collective. As always, write your comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. And for all of your promotion, marketing, as well as music career consulting needs, email ennisproductions@gmail.com.